This is episode 13 of Entrepreneurs for Change. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to our mailing list at entrepreneursforchange.com. Are you ready to be the change? If so, you've come to the right place. You're about to join a movement of entrepreneurs who are empowering people, saving the planet, and turning their passion into profits while creating the lifestyle of their dreams. If you don't believe us, check out our website at entrepreneursforchange.com, a place where you can be inspired, mentored, and supported by a tribe of change-making entrepreneurs just like you. Hello, powerful change makers. Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneurs for Change. I'm Lorna Lee, the Chief Evolutionary Officer of EntrepreneursForChange.com, where we feature entrepreneurs who are pioneering businesses that embrace mission and money, passion and purpose, as well as freedom and adventure. I know many of you listeners out there see business as a powerful way to express your life purpose and true calling on this planet. A purpose-driven business is a powerful way to engage in your personal mission on a day-to-day level while generating the financial abundance you need to support your lifestyle. You do this because you want to live and breathe your life purpose every day, not just on the weekends or during volunteer vacations. Well, our guest today, Pamela Hawley, is here to help you chart the path from identifying your life purpose and turning it into a viable business. Pamela Hawley is a seasoned social entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in the social enterprise sector. She is the founder and CEO of UniversalGiving, an award-winning social entrepreneurship organization that helps people give to and volunteer with vetted quality opportunities all over the world. What's unique about UniversalGiving? It's an organization that takes no cut in donations. 100% of all donations go directly to the cause. Prior to UniversalGiving, Pamela co-founded the Full Circle Fund's Global Economic Opportunity Impact Circle. Pamela also co-founded VolunteerMatch, a nonprofit that has matched more than 4 million volunteers with respective nonprofit organizations. In this insightful interview, Pamela shares with us how she discovered her true calling and offers practical advice on how aspiring social entrepreneurs can do the same. She shares whether or not you need real-world work experience before starting your own organization, how to identify and vet the best, most committed talent to join your team using 3 key criteria, how to get your first clients when you have none, and what you need to do to cultivate your business relationships, ways in which you can start a business that expresses your life purpose when you have financial commitments and a family to care for, ways you can test financial models as a side hustle using a phased approach with a team, how to get started finding venture capital funding, how to go about starting a new business and raising money for it if your previous venture failed, strategies to approach previous investors for funding on your new business even if you lost their investment in the last venture, the powerful inner mindset shifts you need to make in order to truly offer your greatest service in the world, what it takes to get into a social enterprise incubator or accelerator, and how to evaluate whether one is a fit for your company, and much, much more. Now, before diving into the interview, I want to encourage you to rate, review, and download Entrepreneurs for a Change on iTunes. This really helps us reach more people with inspiring stories of entrepreneurs who are changing the world. Also, if these stories inspire you to start a world-changing business of your own, head over to our website at entrepreneursforchange.com and download the Business Changemakers Toolkit to get a jumpstart today. Now on to the show. Pamela, I'm so glad to have you back on the show. I'm really excited to explore with you the process of uncovering or discovering your life purpose. I recently listened to a teleseminar by Jean Houston, who's one of the founders of the Human Potential Movement, and she has a process of how to discover your life purpose. So I'd love to also go through your methodology as well, since you are a seasoned social entrepreneur. So let's kick off by starting with who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Pamela Hawley, and I've been a social entrepreneur for, I think more than 15 years now, and I had to fight hard for that pathway to do what I love to do. And I currently run and founded Universal Giving. It's a website that helps connect people to quality, vetted giving and volunteer opportunities all over the world. 100% of your donation goes direct to the cause. We don't take a cut. And then our second service is going into companies and helping them with their CSR programs. And they pay us to do that, and that helps us sustain ourselves financially, and that's our business model.
So is this organization, Universal Giving, a reflection of your life purpose?
Absolutely. It's a complete germination, continuation of my life purpose. And I will say that doesn't end. I also have other goals, Lorna. So those hoping that you find the magic bullet and you're done, that's not going to be the case. However, loving what you do and striving to find that, if you can, even if it's on the side or full time, whatever you can do, it's important to have that element in your life.
So I would say that a lot of people in the world really feel that they have this greater gift that they want to share, and they feel called to find what purpose they have on this planet. Like, what is the, overall purpose or destiny of their life, really? And so, in many regards, the ability to discover your life purpose is an incredible blessing. And I'd love for you to share with us how you came about discovering your life purpose so that we can inspire people to do the same.
I have to say, I stumbled a little bit upon my own life purpose. We were on a family vacation in Mexico, and at the age of 12, I, was walking down a cul-de-sac very near a marketplace, and I saw all these begging, starving children, and that was unacceptable to me. And from that period on, I started to volunteer. So I knew that cause and giving back and all that was very important. However, finding the pathway into becoming a social entrepreneur was incredibly difficult and challenging. It was not an established marketplace. Now you have classes at universities. You have so many ways you can get involved. You can get degrees. You can go to conferences on social entrepreneurship or on pretty much, any passion that you have. So what I would say for me, it's the first thing you got to do is get out of your head and into the world. And that's the big I word. You've got to involve yourself. And one of the things is to involve yourself in an unselfish way. So it's the I and the you of involving yourself in an unselfish way. It can't just be, I want to go do this and find out just what I want to do. You've got to give along the way to finding out how you can give and find your right purpose. And so part of that magic is going in and finding things that you love or elements of it that you love. And part of it is realizing things that you just don't want to do. And that's valuable as well.
So from that aha moment that you had in Mexico, how did you bridge the moment of knowing that you wanted to be involved in service and give back to the world, and then transforming that desire into a viable business that supports you financially?
That's been a process. It's definitely been a process, and I'm most grateful for it. There's a lot of component to that. First, what I did is I met with industry leaders. There wasn't a clear pathway in social entrepreneurship. So whatever your pathway is, if there's not a clear way to go about it, then go meet with industry leaders. I flew out to go meet with Bill Drayton, the founder of Ashoka back in the 1960s. He clearly was a pioneer in social entrepreneurship. I met with him. He offered me a job. That would have been a great avenue, but I was too entrepreneurial and wanted to start Universal Giving, so I turned it down. But he would have been a great person to work for. Find someone, even if you want to start something on your own, find someone that you can work for or resource or have as a mentor or someone who can guide you or someone who can make recommendations in for you or even refer you to other places. You've got to start on that pathway to involve yourself. And first of all, get matched up with the key people that are experts in your arena. Number two.
Oh, wait. So let's bookmark number 2, but I want to go back. Bill Drayton's a real influencer. How did you get his ear and his time?
I was so excited about this, and I think it just wasn't even a possibility in my mind that I wouldn't meet with him. It just wasn't possible. It didn't even occur to me that he wouldn't meet with me, and I say that very humbly. But I felt like a part of the social entrepreneurship family, and I think he saw how I got it. He saw how I got it. And I think I actually wrote him a personal note because I also knew from friends that he was not on email at the time. I don't know if he is now. I don't ask him because I figure I'm going to talk about other things that are better with him. But, writing a personal note is always a wonderful way. Emails, we have so many, you get deleted. A phone call, hard, unless you can leave a voicemail and they can hear your warm voice on a voicemail. That's a good way too. Make it personal. And it doesn't need to be like sending someone a whole bunch of balloons. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite people is Dustin Faravar. He had interviewed me and said, how do I get involved in socially conscious, work? And I spent time with him, and I'll take a call from anyone, even if it's for 15 minutes just to help them. And he wrote me a beautiful thank you note, and I still keep it. And he sticks out of my mind. Of the hundreds of people I've talked to, I remember Dustin.
Wow. So you basically just sent Bill Drayton a letter, snail mail letter cold?
I did not type it up. It was handwritten. And then I also went to people and kept watching for people. Do you know him? Do you know him? Do you know him? And asked for recommendations in. So it was a real cross-pollination effort. I can't say it was just one thing, but I went and met with as many people as I could. And as people heard my vision, I didn't even have to bring them up. They would say to me, oh, you need to meet Bill Drayton.
Wow. I love your hustle and your perseverance. Fantastic. So point number 2 that you were going to talk about.
Volunteer, internship, you've got to get in there. You got to get into the involved side of it. So first of all, talk to people. Make sure that you've got their buy-in. They want to help you. They're thinking of you. They're connecting you up with people via the phone, email, Facebook, whatever it might be. And then 2, start volunteering and interning or accepting a job with someone. It's so helpful to have that and to really get that experience, because it's one thing to say you want to do something, but it's another thing if you say you have actually done something, even if it's not paid. You can volunteer on the side. You can do it full time. You can do it for part time. There are so many things you can do. And I'll tell you, that speaks volumes. When I see something on someone's resume that they say they want to do it, but they have no experience in the area, it's not that I think they can't do it. But often what happens is you get into it and you go, oh gosh, that's not really exactly what I wanted to do. I actually want to do this, but boy, I'm glad I did that because it helped show me that I didn't want to do it. So practical experience speaks volumes. You need to have that.
Well, it's so interesting because, entrepreneurs just really kind of want to work for themselves. So how valuable do you think working in the industry first is to then starting your own venture?
I think it depends on your skills and your experience and your instincts. I think for me, I was a very scrappy person that could put together an organization on basically no budget. And because I had such experience in volunteering and had given back so much in volunteering for so many, many years, I knew how to mobilize, inspire, and utilize volunteers. So that was natural for me. So you have to look at the things that are natural for you. It was natural for me to be scrappy. It was natural for me to start things. I've been doing that since the age of 10 when I had my first little business out of my room called Pam's Place, where I sold glittered pencils to my dad. And so, I was already thinking about starting businesses. I was already entrepreneurial. That was already my set. There's other people I talk to who say they want to start an organization but feel they can't do it unless they have $500,000, or feel like they want to do it but they don't know how. And when I start to get concerned is when they ask me operational questions of like, well, how do you find someone for this? Wow, you go on the web, you talk to friends, you got to be someone who's a talker of getting out there, connecting people, and finding out these answers. You have to have a passion for making your idea come true. Because I'll tell you, many people have said to me, I had that idea too. Yeah, but did you have the idea? And then also the effort and energy to go figure out how to do it. You have to have a passion not only for your idea, you have to have a passion for implementing your idea. So that's where if you feel like you don't have the passion for implementing it, better to join a larger structure first.
Okay, so you mentioned that you have, I guess, service-oriented side to Universal Giving. I'm curious to know how exactly that works so that you're able to basically support your goal of being able to pass 100% of the donations that donors provide or give to Universal Giving straight onto the project that they are supporting.
So there's several elements that are important when you're creating an organization and you want to make it sustainable. And we believe very much in a diverse pathway to our financial sustainability as a nonprofit. So I'm going to answer this from a couple of different vantage points. Number one is we have a tip on our site that if you donate, if you want to voluntarily give an extra donation to Universal Giving, you can do so. So if you're giving $25 to feed a family in Sudan, you could give an additional donation of $5 to Universal Giving if you wanted. We also fundraise, and then we also have our corporate service. So with the companies, we go in and consult with them, and we help them with their corporate social responsibility, and they pay us to do that. So that's part of our business model. But another part of our business model is what you're talking to is about our workforce. We do have paid people on our workforce, absolutely, and that's important. And where they've gotten to that position of being paid is most of the times they've come on as volunteers, interns, or what we call returnees. Now, these returnees are people who are accomplished professionals. They might be one who has been, for example, Amy Mock. She's incredible. She's an engineer, but she wanted to learn about corporate social responsibility. So she joined us as a returnee because she's not someone fresh out of college, and she's devoted to us, but she's a returnee because she's got experience, but she doesn't have experience in the CSR front. So now she gets experience meeting with companies, being on the phone with them, having interviews with them, helping close partnerships, a very prolific role. She's getting real world experience. But she's doing this as a returnee on the side so that she can learn and potentially get paid to do something like this in the future. Now, a lot of people on our team are paid and they were first a returnee or they were first an intern. Other people were interns and returnees, and then they had it as one experience, and they decided to continue to volunteer with us, or they left to move on to other experiences. So you get your interns and returnees in, you make it a great experience for them, get them on the ground running, giving them real-world experience. That's caring, and that's the right thing to do. Second, it supports your organization's goals. Then you see, is there a good fit here in skills and culture and values that they and you want to convert to paid?
Cool. I love that approach. Definitely. You're able to then identify the most dedicated, passionate people. And those are, of course, are always the ideal employees you want to have on your team.
You know, you just hit on a really important point, Lorna, and you haven't even asked this yet, but the point is we believe in being 99% politics free. Of course, nothing's ever perfect, but having management issues drags an organization down, and we don't tolerate it. So for us, what we try and do is instead of having an interview that's very much like a blind date, people can be amazing interviewers, but you really don't know what's going to happen until you see them on the ground working for you 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and even a year in, there can be surprises. So the best thing is to really get that track record, not just for yourself, but also for them. How do they operate under pressure? Are they happy doing what they do? I mean, I can see a lot of people who join us from for-profit world, and they come in with a mistaken notion of what they think it's going to be like. And I've figured out the top 3 things that make people happy in their jobs, and I'm watching for those when people join our organization to see if they fit with it.
What are those top 3 things?
Are you going to ask me that?
Yes.
Yes. So here are the 3 things, and of course there's more. But number 1 is a lot of times people join because of the vision. Let's say before they were selling routers, which is a good thing. We appreciate routers. We need routers to do internet and all of that. But let's say they weren't passionate about that in sales and they want to do something where the vision seems to be more philanthropic. Well, Universal Giving fits that bill. But then they come to the organization and they don't like their day-to-day. That will not work. You cannot just be inspired by a far-off vision. I encourage people to say, are you inspired by the vision and the leadership of the team? You got to have that you're inspired by that. Number 2, is you have to be able then also to be inspired by the day-to-day. What is your to-do list look like? So when you come in and you see your to-do list, what does that look like when people are looking into their day-to-day when they start at 8 or 9 in the morning? And then the third is people. You need to feel really, really positively that you enjoy working with the people. So it's vision, it's day-to-day, and it's people.
Okay, so going back to the day when you just got off the ground and understanding that you have this for-profit or service-based revenue model with your organization, did you already have an extensive network of CSR connections, social responsibility connections in the corporate world that you knew you could go to with confidence that they would hire your organization?
Well, I have to say this. You know, relationships are incredibly important. You always want to have very solid, strong relationships. always in life, no matter what arena you're in. That's really important. They take time, they take care. You have to be passionate about relationships and about having relationships that are warm, that have integrity, that are mutually beneficial and caring about the other people. But I will say you also have to prove yourself again and again. We have to go back to my days at VolunteerMatch, because from VolunteerMatch, I built up an extensive network of corporate connections and relationships. But how I got those relationships at VolunteerMatch is I literally printed out the Fortune 500 list and started making cold calls. That's what I did. So I made those cold calls. You might be called to do that in your life, and you have to be excited about it. You have to call in and say, what is the value that you're going to provide to someone? Having said that, when we started Universal Giving, it was different because we're not doing the same thing that VolunteerMatch. VolunteerMatch has a great application that allows the companies to come in and have a private label. We don't do that. We come and we do international consulting on CSR, on strategy, operations, and NGO vetting. That's a different model. It fits within an application model, but we don't run an application for companies. I didn't want to compete with VolunteerMatch, so I set up something different because I love both organizations. And I was a co-founder at VolunteerMatch and now a founder of Universal Giving, and that's important to honor those respective organizations. But when I got into Universal Giving, I am now putting forth something that's different. So they know my name, that's good. They know I have a track record, that's good. But I have to put forth something different, and I'm competing in a different realm. Same realm of CSR, but a different product. So you need to prove yourself again. The second thing that happens is, wow, contacts change, businesses and different companies, and they move here and here and here. You have to stay on top of that. So someone who I might have known at Symantec might have moved to AMD, might have moved to Apple, might have moved to Adobe. You have to be able to stay on top of that. And it's very important to stay on top of those relationships. You can't take it for granted and just say, oh, I had this relationship, so I got in. You have to prove your value.
Wow. So essentially you got your first clients by cold calling the Fortune 500 list.
1996, that's what I did.
I love it. I love it. You've got the hustle, girl. The hustle is pretty much the number one characteristic that defines all entrepreneurs, whether social or otherwise.
You're going to get it done. At the end of the day, you're going to get it done, and you're not going to accept a no. And there are definitely some hard times as an entrepreneur when you face no's. And one of the things that I've been so grateful for is that when I hear them now, I don't take it so personally. I think before I was like, oh my gosh, how can they not see this? Global poverty definitely needs a solution, and I want to help be a part of it. How can they not think that A, that's important, or B, some people thought, is there even a marketplace for it? And I was astounded. But see, that's part of the thing about being a visionary and having the vision early, 10 or 15 years earlier. Now pretty much everyone has done something internationally, especially in California or in the major cities and metros. But 15, 20 years ago when I was writing the business plan, that was not the case. And I wrote the business plan for this, maybe about 12 years ago. It was around 9/11, right before it, and it was not popular. So, often, too, you have to think about this. If you need to be something that's a little bit more gentle, where something is already readily accepted, better to join an organization rather than to start something up. You've got to expect those no's and stay peaceful and humble and confident that you are headed on that right pathway to achieve your vision.
Yes, being able to maintain confidence in the face of rejection and no's is very character building. So a lot of people feel a yearning to do something that has lasting value in the world, and an endeavor that allows them to give the best of themselves, but they struggle to identify what their life purpose is. Now, for me, it took a powerful, life-changing experience in the Brazilian Amazon that really brought me to the level of knowing that I wanted to be of service and discovering a way that allowed me to serve that was both a fulfilling expression of my unique creativity, talents, and strengths that had the potential to reward my efforts abundantly. But a lot of people don't really have that kick in the pants transformative experience. So if you were to just guide them through a visualization process or a process of self-inquiry on how to find their true calling so that they know then what to do next in their first step to, get involved in the world, how do you help them identify what they're passionate about and especially find a true calling that is financially viable? It's
a very good question, and there is no one right pathway, Lorna. But I will say you've got to keep uncovering the pathway bit by bit by bit. So, for example, for me, even though I knew I wanted to be of service, I was very confused about how to go about it. There just was no clear pathway. I was so upset. I hear I graduated from Duke cum laude and my friends were becoming doctors and lawyers and MBAs, and there was a path, and they had a degree at the end of that path. And I was like, there is no degree at the end of the path. How do I get on the path? What is the path? You got to create the path. Sometimes you're going to have to create the path. And even sometimes when you're on the path, you might need to go off on a little bushwhacking run off into the side, into the weeds, and come back on the path later. It's not something that's always set in stone, but you need to take that first step of getting back to the I of involve and really involving yourself. So, for example, I actually started to study myself. I went and I took personality tests. I took Myers-Briggs. I went to that. I found out what my fortes were. I went and I did Richard Bowles, What Color's Your Parachute? I had all of these colors and circles talking about all my gifts and talents and what I love to do. It was really hard because even after that, it still wasn't clear. Then I started a gift basket business where I was putting together gift baskets and I wanted to go in and sell it to companies and give back a portion of the donations to nonprofits. So, 15, 20 years ago, very, philanthropically advanced by some people's views about having social responsibility embedded into my company from day one. Well, I chickened out. I got nervous. I didn't have a business partner, and it never got off the ground. It was a huge disappointment. I woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning. I knew I couldn't do it, and it was a dead end. So I faced a lot of cul-de-sacs, and I've never really talked about this before, but, I got some criticism from my speaking that people said, oh, it was so clear to you, and you knew since age of 12, and it's been so easy for you. And I was like, wait. I'm a super positive person, but there's a lot of challenges that went into me finding the right thing and some seemingly cul-de-sacs that made me realize some really important things. So, for example, team is really important. Unless you want to be a solo person, team is very important. So when I stopped that gift package business, it was because I realized I need a good team. I don't want to do this on my own. So you might find some dead ends that way. Study yourself, find out what your good qualities are, involve yourself in something. And after that, I actually did go get a job. I went and I got a job and I worked in PR for a while. And then I worked in broadcast journalism because I thought I wanted to change the tenor of media news, just like you are. So that was a strong calling. But once the internet came, that was a chunk I didn't see before. Now, there's nothing I could have done about that, Lorna. But the thing is, if you study yourself and you prepare yourself, and then you watch the world and see how things in the world can aid your vision, all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I can help people, not just one person volunteer, I can help thousands. Well, I didn't know about the internet at age 12. It didn't exist. So sometimes when you take 2 steps towards life, life will take 2 steps back towards you. So I guess what I would say is study yourself, prepare, plan to even do business planning on something you might not even launch. It'll start to get you on your pathway. And then sometimes you got to go work at a company and do it on the side. And there's nothing wrong with that.
So of all these different tests that you took in order to get to know yourself, which one did you find to be the most effective? Myers-Briggs?
It's funny because I've definitely changed with Myers-Briggs over time. And I can't remember all the other ones that I took, but I do still take them from time to time because I think we progress as we, continue in life and things change and different parts of us are emphasized. Not any one of them was more helpful than the other. I think what it was is just constant learning about yourself. And the other thing I did a lot was I journaled a lot. I needed to get my thoughts down. I wanted to know more about what my strivings were. I was just looking back on some of my journals when I was 22, 24, and they're all this unbelievable, unsatiable desire. I've got to serve the world or I cannot survive. It was non-negotiable. I was like, I know. I also have a strong faith, and I was like, I know God or divine love, whatever you want to call it, had a purpose for me, and I kept asking for that. So I studied, I did my homework, I kept asking God for that. I would go out there and volunteer. I would go, make a living because I wasn't getting paid to start a business or wasn't getting paid at the time. So I was scrappy and bringing it all together. And then eventually was that opportunity to co-found VolunteerMatch, and it was with a partner. So, that was an evolution. By the time I co-founded VolunteerMatch, I was age 26. My first epiphany moment was age 12. So that was not a fun process. When people say it was easy for me, I want to be like, well, I had a good 14 years to reach my first vision. But even then, VolunteerMatch wasn't international, so that wasn't my full vision. I had to wait again another 6 years. So for those of you who think it's immediate, good for you. I congratulate it. I want to hear about it. I support it. but it's not always that way. You need to enjoy life along the way and realize beautiful things happen along that journey, even if you're not doing exactly what you think you want to do.
I was having a conversation with another internet entrepreneur who's also based in Chiang Mai about the idea of, leaving a legacy and, discovering your life purpose. And so he was, hadn't really thought too deeply about what his life purpose or the legacy he wanted to leave behind would be, because he was saying, I've achieved abundance. My business is good. I'm really happy and confident. So what next? And so I suggested, well, why not create something that has lasting positive value in the world? And so he noodled on that and, wasn't really sure about how to identify what that was. And so what I remember, my personal mission that I discovered in the Brazilian Amazon in 2004, it was a vision that was bigger than me. It was a vision that I had even no idea how to accomplish. And that was to leverage innovative technologies to preserve indigenous wisdom so that these ancient wisdom traditions could continue to benefit the modern world. And at that time, I knew nothing about the internet. I didn't know anything about technology. But that vision has carried me for years. And it has unfolded in so many exciting and wonderful ways because it was bigger than me. And so in the journey of pursuing that guiding light, so many people came forward, so many experiences happened. I learned all about technology. I got online. I'm a media producer. And I'm also in the process of producing an album for a shaman from the Hunaquen tribe who has great music and, great lyrics, and both traditional and in Portuguese. And all of this is going to be done through these, technologies like a crowdfunding platform and then, publishing to, Bandcamp. And so this is all very exciting. But my advice to him was, pick a vision that is bigger than you, that will carry you like a vehicle through this pathway of life.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. I think that's lovely. I'll take it too.
So you did the whole side hustle thing for a while because, of course, before discovering that financially viable idea, you still have to, pay your bills and, rent and all that. Do you have any advice for people who are stuck in jobs they are not passionate about, but have financial obligations or family they need to support, and how they can transition to creating a financially sustainable business that expresses their life purpose, as opposed to fulfilling their life purpose on the weekends while stuck in a soul-leeching job for 5 days a week?
Mm-hmm. It's a very good question. And I do honor very, very much the people who have financial commitments, families. Those need to be honored. A lot of the breakdown we've had in the nonprofit world results from the fact that families haven't been able to stay together and stay supportive, and therefore social services have to come in. And that's not good. And we want to make sure that our number one commitment to our world and our communities is our families. I know I treasure mine. My father and mother just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. I'm extremely close with my sister, Allison, and my brother-in-law, Stu, and their 3 children. Family's number one. And so I always say that to people about finding their passion. You need to make sure you take care of home first. That's really important, and it can't be overlooked. The second is that when you are in a job and maybe it's taking away part of your energy, but you also have financial commitments and a family to watch out for, I very much look at a phased approach. Let's say you all of a sudden decide to abruptly leave your job or even do it in a very planned way, but you don't have a good nest egg to do it, or maybe your kids haven't gone to college yet, or whatever it might be. The ensuing stress that you provide to yourself and your family may not be worth it for you to follow your calling. Your calling should be found. It might have some pressure to it, yes, but it also has exhilaration to it. And so be very watchful about that. And I think when you do have those commitments, what's very helpful is a phased approach. I understand that people don't want to necessarily do it on the side, but you can start testing out financial models on the side. So for example, my brother-in-law, he creates this amazing toffee. He just makes it every year for his office. He's incredible. He's incredibly passionate about it. And it may be something that he may be able to start a business with on the side. Well, he's not leaving his job immediately to go do that, but it's certainly in his mind. And I know it's in his mind. And perhaps he'll consider a phased approach to doing that. And if not, he's got the joy of giving back excellent toffee to so many people who appreciate it so much. So first of all, get involved in your passion, even if it's not financially sustainable. Second, start to make some baby steps towards it. It doesn't even matter what you're doing. You can make baby steps towards that. You did. You started to do the same thing too, just even by producing these videos. With Universal Giving, I worked out of my home and I started building the website. I didn't have money to do it, but I started building it. So, that's that phased approach of starting to do it so you don't create ensuing financial stress. But I strongly suggest you do that. I suggest you get a team of like-minded people. Because what happens if you can get, let's say, 4 other moms who are also split with kids, or 2 dads and 2 moms, or whatever it might be, and come up with a clear definition of responsibilities and gather your team of 2, 3, 5, 10 people, clear responsibilities, clear roles, and start to see, is each one of you willing to put in 10K so it's all equal? Is each one of you willing to put in 10 hours a week? And then start to create that kind of collaborative, or do it only on your own and move towards that model. Now the trick is, if you start to add more people, well, then you're going to have much bigger financials at the end, because you're trying to get everyone out of their day jobs into meaningful work. But the point is, you need to phase it in. Or the other thing you can do is the just traditional venture capitalist way. Come up with your business plan, which you should have anyways. Come up with your deck, which you should have anyways. And you start to go to shop it and see if you can get funding. And one of the best ways to do it, if had VC funding before, go to angel investors. They can write a check right on the spot. And if you don't know who they are, ask your friends, ask your colleagues. Invest in going to an angel investor conference. Because even if it costs you $500 to go, they will be candid with you and they will tell you why or why not they think your idea will work. So there are ways, and the pathway may not be easy, but there's definitely possible.
So it's really interesting because a lot of, me being a bit of a media hub, I get people asking me, where do I get funding from? I want to find venture capitalist funding for my organization, for my, awesome project. And it seems like everyone that I've spoken to pretty much says start with your own network first. Because it's typically, there aren't really so many opportunities unless you're a certain type of company, like a innovative, like technology company that's solving a really, critical problem or issue. But it's much harder to get funding, venture capital funding cold. And pretty much the routes to funding all come, by word of mouth and introductions through your immediate network and beyond. Have you found this to be the case, or have you found places where people will fund your project based on its vision and its business plan rather than, based on the relationship to you or who they believe you to be? Because I've heard it said that investors invest in people, not ideas. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. Oh my gosh, absolutely. That's one of the things when we look at our NGO vetting model, what the vetting procedure that we look at for our nonprofits, we take into account leadership, because one of the things we do is we base it on what venture capitalists do, which is they look at a business plan. If they like it, the next thing they say is, I want to meet the management team. People are all important in a venture, and you're going to find some people who have a foundation that absolutely match the same interests, but there isn't a good click or a good synergy there. You got to let that go. Then you might find other people whose foundation doesn't even support at all what you're doing, but they might be like, wow, I really like your vision. That's neat. And they might be persuaded to fund you. Definitely go to family and friends for the first reason only in your initial network, is to show that you've built up that buy-in from people. Let's say they even give small amounts. You can still show that 20 people gave to you. And second, you show that you made the effort to outreach to them and they committed to you, even if it was small amounts. Obviously, it's better if you have more people and bigger amounts, but you definitely want to do that so you can get some quick funding to help you. I certainly did that. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to help get off the ground and to help pay our engineers who had been working partly pro bono and then partly were being paid. So I think that's, important, first of all. The second, I think, is you then want to be open to the fact that there can be great synergy with a lot of different people. And they might be people that you haven't met before. Go to conferences. You definitely want to go to conferences and make sure at those conferences that you are open to meeting these new people and networking. It's a great, great pathway that you're able to do in order to meet people. So be open to the fact of both people you know as well as meeting new people.
Great. I love that advice. Thank you so much. Very actionable, very, it's very clear. So I think a lot of folks just kind of get really stressed out about not knowing where to start. So thank you very much for sharing that advice.
Yes.
Now, the word serial entrepreneur has a certain appeal, yet there's a tendency to assume that serial refers to a series of successful exits rather than failures. So, do you have any advice for people who want to start a new business after failing a previous venture?
Well, first of all, with serial entrepreneurs, I don't think a serial entrepreneur is better or worse than someone who sticks with something. I'm a serial entrepreneur in the sense that I might have a lot of small ventures, but I'm someone who likes to stay committed to my original vision. I don't like to move off of it. And there'll only be some major reasons as to why I would move off of it. And so for me, international was very important with Universal Giving, and that's why I started Universal Giving. I don't really see myself as a serial entrepreneur on the main stage. I do have a lot of side projects that I start up, little things that don't take a lot of financial wherewithal, because I see solutions that need to take place in our community, and I see problems that need to be solved. And so I'm always thinking about those challenges and wanting to help meet them even in small ways. So my mind does think that way. If you, quote unquote, fail, you didn't really fail as long as you look at it, what we call it Universal Giving as an LL, a lesson learned. So there is no failure or mistake unless you repeat it. The thing is, you need to come in when you go in and get funding your second round or third round and go, you need to be super confident. It needs to be genuinely confident to say, I went through that venture and, this is where I missed. Or actually, don't even do that. Start off with a positive. This was really great. We got traction here. Our product was very successful. This was good. But we found out that our manufacturing costs were way more than we had planned. There were strikes in Bangladesh or whatever it was, and we had originally forecasted $8 per hour, and it ended up being $15 per hour. And we found out it wasn't viable. Or my partner left, and I felt like I wanted to do it with a partner. There are reasons why a venture, quote unquote, fails, but it's not really failing. You might have had a different marketplace circumstance, or you might have had a partner leave, or a lot of other things. So first start off is there's got to be something positive about your venture, something. Have that self-reflection, say, these are the positive things, top 3 positive things I learned, and here are the top 3 things that I know that I'm not going to do in my next venture. Any venture capitalist, angel, funder, any advisor will be so impressed with that self-reflection. They'll say, wow, this person really understands what the positives and the challenges were. They're not going to repeat that again. Now, if you do it a second time around and you do repeat it, then it is a mistake. And I don't know what the advice is to give you to go around a third time. Maybe you have to self-fund it that time. Don't be embarrassed about something that doesn't seem to go right the way that you want. That happens a lot in entrepreneurship, but you need to get back up again and create something different. There's a very well-known internet entrepreneur. He's just started something else, and his app has just got horrible reviews. Does that mean he's a bad visionary? Does that mean he's a bad entrepreneur? Not at all. He's working out the kinks. I suspect he's going to have them worked out soon. I suspect he's taking that as a lot of consumer feedback, and I bet if he either cleans up whatever is not working well, it's going to change, or 2, he'll realize and he'll morph his venture into something else that does work. So often if something doesn't seem to be working right, you don't have to abort it. You can morph it into something else and take a little bit of a tangent. So first of all, I would recommend you to not give up initially. There might be a way to morph it. There might be a way to exit and sell a portion of it. And then third, I would say, understand yourself, understand where you could have done better in that venture. Be positive and go in confidently, and make sure you know your answers on that new business plan. Make sure you know it back and forth. No questions can go unanswered.
It's really interesting, the process of going through a failed venture. So, when I think about a good friend of mine, actually, who has turned into a personal development, I don't know, he wouldn't be thrilled with the term guru, but he's become a Amazon bestseller with a self-help book, a little self-help book that he put out thinking he was only going to sell maybe 10 copies, but it became a huge hit. It's called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. His name is Kamal Ravikant. And he talks about in this book how one of his ventures was, his company was basically going down in flames, and how he had to look his employees in the eye and tell them that he was laying them off. And then how he had to look his investors in the eye and tell them that he's lost all their money. And some of these investors were friends of his. And, what a difficult process that was to do. So, let's say you go through that and, you're launching a new venture. How do you convince other people to take you seriously, especially if you've lost all the money that your investors invested in your previous business?
Well, I think, and that can certainly be a challenge and it's hard. But with some of the investors, they understand that and they should understand that. A lot of venture capitalists know that if they have 10 deals, they expect 8 to fail. And if they get 2 major winners, that's great. People know when they're investing that they go into risks. The key thing there, Lauren, is you need to be upfront about it. It can't just be everything's great, everything's great. Oh, I lost your money. That's where you're keeping them apprised of weekly or monthly or quarterly updates, depending on your relationship with the investor. Keeping them apprised is very important. And that makes sure that you maintain the relationship. What you don't want to do is surprise people. So if they gave you $200,000 or $2 million to say everything's great, or to just kind of, say we're building, but that certain things are not going that well, it's better to be a little bit upfront and say, we're facing some challenges. Seasoned venture capitalists and angel investors also know there's going to be challenges. So if they don't hear any challenges, they're kind of like, this is kind of strange. Like, it's great that you can have amazing success, but there's always something you can work on. So I would say apprising them along the pathway is very, very important. Then when you go back in, I'd go to a mix of people. I wouldn't go back to just the same people. You need to evaluate each relationship on a case-by-case basis. And perhaps you sit this one out, or you ask them at a later date. Let's say, for example, you might do one of the following. Let's say you had 2 investors that you weren't sure whether you should reapproach again. You might go get new investors and then come back after 2 major things have happened. Number 1, you have other investors showing support. Number 2, you've piloted this new product and you've shown some success with it. Then you can go back to the people who funded your initial failed venture and say, thank you so much for your support of me. This time around, I've actually got new people who get it and are excited about it. And number 2, I want you to know that I've already piloted, I've launched it, and here are the success factors. I'm now asking you to come back in again because I've got some proof of concept. That's where you really need to go if you're going to go back again.
Wow, I love it. That's so ballsy, but it's great. Thank you. So, I think one of the most important aspects around the process of picking yourself up after failure and launching a new venture is how you reconcile your inner experience and build up your own self-confidence in yourself. Do you have any advice on doing that? I mean, okay, like the external strategies are definitely really important, but it's really hard to do that if you're just kind of dying inside. You feel like a fraud. So how do you build up that your own personal strength again so you can look these investors in the eye with confidence and say, hey, I'm coming back to you for your support again?
Well, it's hard, right? I mean, there's definitely times when I've been shaking in my boots and times when I feel very, times early on where I felt uncomfortable and, you don't know and no one wants to be turned down. And sometimes you've got to make requests that way. But, that's a part of life. You need to be, confident and be grateful and humble for the qualities you have. And you also need to be very firm and very strong and be committed to that vision. Now, I will say, there's a lot of preparation that you can do in advance of that meeting. And I don't just mean on the business plan. You need to have your own informal network around you of people who are loving and supportive, and not just people who are a blind stamp for you, but the people that understand your vision and believe you can achieve it, and they love you. They're not on your board. They're not on your advisors. They may be friends. They might be people from church. They might be someone from the industry. But it's people that you can call and you can open up with and you can be vulnerable with and say, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous going to this funder tomorrow. But I think I'm prepared. I'm going to do the best I can. They're going to support you. They're going to love you. And you need those people around you, that informal network. I actually have a spiritual board of advisors, and they think positive thoughts for me. They pray for me. They help me. And I'm grateful for them. They're not on my letterhead. No one knows their names. I also just have an informal network of wonderful friends that I talk to as well, too. You need to have people that you can speak with and talk to about these things. If you don't, you'll bottle it up, and that might come out in your meetings. And then when you go in, as with anything in life, I mean, think about it. Most of us played sports at some time in high school or college, probably really nervous before that track meet or before the big basketball game or before ballet or whatever you did. But, that's the thing. One of the things my great Oma did, my beautiful grandmother, who was one of the first women flutists at Juilliard, and she said to me, it's okay to have the butterflies, honey, but just make them fly in formation. And I went, oh, so you have the pressure, Lorna. People are going to have the pressure. I still have the pressure. But you need to make those butterflies fly in formation. We're not scattered all over the place, frantic. If you are, you need to calm down, take a walk around the block, or postpone that meeting. You go in with confidence and peace about it, and you go in also with the following thing in mind. It can't just be your agenda. You're going in to help create this vision and idea that you have in your heart and find the right people who want to support it. It cannot just be, oh my gosh, I need to get something from this person, an extraction. No, you're going in to create a relationship, and you're confident and humble and peaceful when you go in to create a relationship, which is, I want this person to be excited to give to me too. And I want them to feel a part of it. And I want them to feel a partnership, and I want them to feel apprised and part of my progress. You have to think win-win. It's the same thing for me when I get up and do improv. You know, my grandmother also taught me this. She's like, stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about loving the audience. And that helped me tremendously. And my mom does that very well as well, too. She's a professional flutist. And she just gets out there, and with her excellence, and I know things might not always go the right way, or someone might miss something, you would never notice it with her. She's a consummate professional. She is there to give love and joy to the audience. And I mean, one final note on that, that's one thing that we learn in improv. Let's say that something isn't going well. The worst thing you want to do is let the audience see that. Now, why? Because that could be considered authentic, but what you're actually doing is, if you think something's not going right and you all of a sudden are an improviser on stage and you go, uh-oh, you know what you just did? You just made the audience member feel really, really uncomfortable. Whereas instead, if you just go, that's right, I'm the doctor that I was in a previous lifetime. I'm a doctor. And even if you made a mistake and someone had called you a teacher, well, now you're a doctor teacher, or now you're a doctor teacher PhD that teaches new teachers who teach doctors. Like, you make it fun. I know someone said I was a teacher, but I said a doctor now and I kind of made a mistake. No, you go in confidently and you make that mistake a gift. Okay, so that's the thing where you have to figure out how to serve the audience, and your audience here might be a party of one, but you need to go in confidently, humbly, and go in serving that other person, loving that audience member, loving your investor. It's got to be right for them and right for you. This world is not a one-sided economy ever.
There's something that I would kind of describe as a bit of an alchemical shift in a certain way, where it can feel like such an exhausting burden if you're coming from the perspective of you having to accomplish this big thing. And, oh my God, you know, am I going to succeed or fail? And there's so much work to do. And, you know, will this person help me and all that? The kind of like a self-centered, you know, or selfish approach to why you're doing a certain thing. But, you know, what you've just described touches upon something that I'd like to invite our listeners to consider, is the idea of letting your life purpose, or letting your bigger vision, or letting the universe operate through you. And so when you connect with that bigger vision, that bigger intention, and you feel like the support of the universe wanting to, you know, help you in this endeavor, but then also recognizing, you know, or grounding yourself in that humility, you know, in terms of, you know, shifting away from the ego-based of, this is me accomplishing this great thing, to, I am a vehicle for this great thing to be accomplished through me, and I'm looking for other people that share that vision. It's a very powerful place to be. And I think that it makes everything so much easier. It creates a flow. It creates a certain sense of like ease and less striving. And you can actually accomplish a lot more.
Absolutely, you can. You do accomplish a lot more, and there's a lot more joy to it, and it's important to have that joy in whatever we're doing.
Absolutely. So I'm a bit envious of people who seem to know at birth exactly what they wanted to do, and seem to enter that fast track of mastery in that endeavor from grade school to shining light in their industry. That wasn't me, and, you know, I get the sense from you sharing your history and background in social entrepreneurship that it wasn't you either. I mean, it seems like we both have had pretty, you know, meandering career paths where we've tried a lot of things and reinvented ourselves many times. And I can say for myself that process was really brutal. For example, when I switched from the nonprofit sector to high tech, I'd go to these networking events, but, you know, people often in these environments relate to each other based on their job role, like, you know, what you do. Are you a UX designer or a database programmer? Or they relate to the company that you work for. Oh, so-and-so works for Cisco or another recognized company. Now, I remember how vulnerable I felt when I was trying to get people to take me seriously enough to get me a job. And it didn't really matter how many white papers I read online or, no one wanted to hire me unless I had industry experience. And I went through this process when I was in my early 30s. So what advice would you give to somebody who has discovered their true calling to do something that they have never done before, never had any industry experience in a field where they don't know anybody, and then in their mid-30s, in an age where it's really kind of unattractive to get the unpaid internship? Do you have any advice for a mid-career changer?
Well, I think that, I would argue with the fact that it's, unattractive to have the unpaid internship. And when we go back to some of our people, they're doing it at night. And you really can't get out of the element of getting experience. I mean, experience is important. And so that could be everything from offering on the side to help a conference convener, to help organize the conference. First of all, it's smart. They will take some of your pro bono help. You can help understand more about the industry. You can help gain contacts with people that they're outreaching to regarding the industry. What if you help them market it or help outreach to people to get them to come? That is something that can help you connect up with a lot of people. Second, getting, a returnship, you can do something like that for 5 hours a week. It's not a lot of time. You need to demonstrate that you're getting experience actually showing, that you had the experience of doing whatever your calling is. So I don't really know how much you get around that. The other way is taking the education route, taking classes, getting in there with like-minded people. You might start ventures together. That might be helpful, but you might also take the academic route of helping to teach about your chosen passion as well, too. I don't really know. I mean, I'm usually not stumped with the question, but you need to get in there. It goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is to be unselfish and to be involved. So you've got to think about how can I serve the world and then take a step to be involved. Even if you don't have to do that, I still recommend it because you want to build up this cadre of experiences of saying like, oh, well, I did this. And actually, when I interned here, I returned here and I did a returningship here. I learned so much here. People will be impressed by that. You could go into a seasoned entrepreneur who's got 10 years experience, but if you've interned at 3 different organizations and you can say, oh, well, guess what? My passion is being in fundraising and development. By the way, I've done fundraising and development at these 3 organizations. That social entrepreneur might not have that experience. They can see you with 3-month separate experiences as incredibly valuable to them, coming into them and saying, oh, I can tell you how to do this based on my other experiences. So you don't always have to have been around in the industry for 15 years. You can go and get these micro experiences that can be tremendously valuable and not take a lot of time. But you do need to build up that experience. And it doesn't have to be that you have to go work, unpaid full time, but do get the experience.
Say an entrepreneur comes up with a business idea that would qualify themselves as a social entrepreneur. What resources would you point them to?
I would point them to Bill Drayton just to understand the history of social entrepreneurship. There's definitely the Social Enterprise Alliance, that's a very strong conference as well, too. And then I think you have to find, there's a lot of different conferences you can look at depending on what your passion is, because there's definitely, for example, there's indigenous grassroots conferences. There's one on social entrepreneurship that has to do with more on corporate social responsibility. You've got Jeff Skoll's conference, in the UK. All of them, that you got so many resources. 15 years ago when I was starting out, there were none of these conferences. So have your pick and go to these conferences and study it. Also, same thing you could do is on the academic front. Stanford, Harvard, Duke, all had very prolific, strong social entrepreneurship bents. You can definitely get in there. Go to lectures, study the papers that they have on them, understand them. You've got the world at your feet on social entrepreneurship. And oh my gosh, on Facebook as well too. So, there's so much out there. It is such a blessing and so exciting to see so much out there. Get in there. Go to a meetup on social entrepreneurship. Listen to people. Talk to people about your idea. You need to get in there and start talking about it, involving people who are like-minded as you. And even that is going to provide you so much positive energy. And keep in mind what I was talking about earlier. You take 2 steps towards life. Life will take 2 steps back towards you. I didn't sit there and go, shoot, come on, God, please create the internet because I want to start UniversalGiving. I didn't know that, about the internet, 15 years ago. But once that happened, I went, wow, I can stop volunteering and I can create an organization to help thousands of others volunteer and give. Well, I didn't know that at the time. You have to start on your pathway not knowing all the variables. Now, I say that cautiously because if you can know the variables, you should know the variables. But sometimes you won't know them all, and you need to start on your pathway, and life will come back towards you too. And of course, you're on a journey with this. You're with friends, with family. You're with your informal advisors who's supporting you. Make this enjoyable for yourself. You don't have to be a loner out there. Sometimes it's hard. Make sure you have those networks of people who love you and support your idea and encourage you on this beautiful, beautiful pathway of self-awareness and realizing who your true self is and what you said at the top. Doing your purpose, finding your purpose, that passion and purpose, and living it. And it is a process. Lorna, I am not done with mine. I have grander goals that I'm thinking about, and I'm starting to embark on them on the side and grateful for it. We always have to be striving for that next venue.
The social enterprise sector is such an interesting space. And as you've mentioned, it's really grown to a huge degree over the past decade. Now we see so many different kinds of companies that are trying to address social and environmental issues through creative business solutions. However, it appears that only the most innovative of these purpose-driven companies actually qualify to be accepted by social venture incubators and accelerators. Can you help demystify the world of social venture incubators and accelerators and what it takes to be accepted?
It is very competitive. So there's a lot of forces that have to come together. And the first thing that came to the top of my mind, improv, is it needs to be a hot idea. A lot of the ones that make it into these incubators, they have a lot of synergy. The incubators need to make sure, number one, that their investors and their advisors synergize with the new idea. So if they think the idea is really neat, but they don't have investors and advisors to help them, it's not really a good fit. So you might have a great idea, and some people at the incubator might really like it, but they might be like, gosh, we're tech-oriented, you're not. Great idea. And they might recommend you to someone else. So just because you go through that process, you might get recommended into something else. But you do have to make sure your idea needs to be very, very compelling and usually really, really innovative and different. So it's got to be a game changer. It has to be a life changer, not just a nice to have, not just a good thing to do, not a copycat, even though you feel like you might have some version that's a little bit different. It needs to be a real game changer in order to get into them. Second, having relationships helps. Third, seeing that the skills you need is available on their advisor skill set. That's going to be important. And then fourth, have to have really, really good communications. How you market yourself, your deck, all of that, how you present yourself as an individual and your company is going to be paramount. I often relate this because I love holding dinner parties for people and welcoming people of all different backgrounds. And you can cook an amazing meal, but if it doesn't look good, people aren't going to eat it. So you need to make sure that your idea is awesome and the way you present it is awesome as well. So communications, marketing, the way you present yourself and your idea has to be top-notch as well.
So what about the rest of the social entrepreneurs that aren't the most game-changing, innovative companies? Where do they go?
There's a lot of meetups you can be a part of. There are Facebook groups. There are social enterprise groups that you can be a part of. Not everything, just because you get into an incubator, does not mean that you won the world. You still got to prove your idea, and there's a lot of pressure having the incubator support behind you. So I wouldn't be concerned so much about that. I don't really think that's an issue. You'll find a way to get it done. If you're scrappy, you'll make it happen. So being an incubator, just like getting venture capitalist funds, does not mean you've won. It's a big step and it helps you, but you need to make sure that you're willing to do this at all costs. It doesn't matter what support you get or not. You're going to make it happen.
Do you know of organizations that provide seed funding for startup social entrepreneurs, especially organizations willing to fund startups that have not quite yet reached the mezzanine level, a level where they are actively in business and serving their constituents?
So are you asking for one that's like just a pure startup, like barely started at all?
I think maybe, just started, but not quite at a robust level.
I still think that a lot of the great ones out there, Draper Richards Foundation, Echoing Green, MacArthur Foundation is probably a little bit longer road on the entrepreneurship. But you want to get in there early anyways, because a lot of them want to be a part of an early idea, and they may fund you early on. Or if you do have your startup business off the ground, then that's very compelling to them. And they think, oh, I can see the successes. I want to get involved. So I still think a lot of those are really helpful. You look at Y Combinator, that's probably even a little bit more competitive. They're all going to be competitive. Getting any type of foundation funding or incubator funding is going to be very competitive. That's why, again, I think the angel investors are so great because they can write a check right then. They're individuals who don't have to consult with anyone else. And if they like your idea, they can then fund you now. And how do you find them? There's lists of angel investors. There's conferences. You need to network and all of that. I mean, there's definitely ways to go about it. So, I mean, angel investors are like that in a way. They're angels. They're an investor who is an angel can very quickly help shepherd your idea without a lot of your bureaucracy and all these other things. So I still think you should go after the traditional realms because them knowing about you, they might recommend you to some other people too. But then go the scrappy way too and go to individuals.
So we're about coming to the end of our segment. I always love to end with this question because, you know, being a successful entrepreneur is usually a road that is, you know, populated with a few potholes of failure. And I'd love to ask you what your biggest business failure was and what lesson you learned from this experience so that our listeners can avoid this massive pothole in their journey of entrepreneurship.
Gosh, that's a really good question. And the first thing that came to my mind really was that gift basket experience. You know, here I had been working in a catering company where it was a cafe that I had gone in to train with, and they also had catering on the side. And I was put out on the street to go do catering and to help sell it in to major law firms and businesses and accounting firms downtown in LA. And I was successful in doing that. And I thought, well, now I've got these relationships with the law firms and accounting firms. I've seen them get gift packages and gift baskets. I'll create those gift baskets. And I mean, I went to conferences and snuck in and was able to get materials for the gift baskets. I figured out the best Mylar paper and ribbons. I had a business plan. I went to USC entrepreneurship school and got a certificate at night in entrepreneurship. I was doing all the right things. I had a business plan. I had all of that. But see, I never got it off the ground. It was a failure because what happened, I did all this planning. I was totally ready to go, but I didn't have a team. And I wasn't comfortable with that. And I didn't want to do it on my own. And so to me, that was a failure. It was very depressing. It was a very low time. I devoted a year of my life preparing to launch this business, basically never even got off the ground. And it was solid. It had solid metrics. It was possible to do it, but I just felt overwhelmed by doing this on my own. And that was a big, big failure to me. And a lot of people are disappointed. A lot of my friends and family, they wanted me to be happy. They wanted me to find what I loved to do. And here I was. I didn't know what my next thing would do. And then the next thing I tell them is that I'm co-founding an internet company, VolunteerMatch, that helps match up volunteers with nonprofits. What does that have to do with your last venture? So they knew it was integral to who I was, but boy, it was confusing. And they stuck by me. But a lot of them were scratching their heads. I have no doubt. But as we know, VolunteerMatch became successful from that. You got to get up again. You need to start again. You need to realize what those lessons learned. And I will never forget that. With that gift basket business, the importance of team. I had done everything right. I had a little bit of seed funding. I was being super scrappy. I had a business plan. I had gone to the conference shows and trade shows. I knew who I was going to sell into. I knew they needed gift baskets for their clients. I knew my whole sales channel, everything, Lorna. But I didn't have a team. And I did not want to do it without a team. That was huge self-awareness for me. And the next time I went to my next venture, I had a team. And when I went to UniversalGiving, I had a team. You might be a real go-getter as an entrepreneur, but you need to understand always the importance of that team. And so that was big for me. And it was not a particularly happy time in my life. It was a very, very tough part of my journey. I felt so lost. I felt so just upset that I just couldn't muster it to make this happen. But soon after, probably about a year later, there was the opportunity to VolunteerMatch, and I was very, very grateful. And so stay humble and stay listening. Take your lessons learned. Know why something didn't work. Understand yourself. And then start again. And chin up and start again. And that's what we all have to do in life. If we make a mistake, if we have a lesson learned, you've got to pick yourself up, be honest, be humble, and continue forward on the pathway of progress. And we can all do that. And it's up to our mindsets and our hearts every day to say, I can start again. I might have made a mistake, but I'm going to start again this moment today. There's a new opportunity to put forth my beautiful qualities so that I can serve the world, and be humble and confident that you have a unique way to serve the world. And you can do it. can. And I'm grateful to be here today, and whatever lessons learned I have, I hope I keep having that chin up and say, I can do it. And I'm going to continue to serve the world with the radiance and joy and positivity I have on this pathway of social entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your deep experience in this sector and all your great advice. How can we best stay in touch with you?
Thank you, Lauren. It's a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much.
What's your Facebook and your website?
It's universalgiving.org, and the social media is Facebook. It's Universal Giving, and also for myself, I also have a Facebook page for Pamela Hawley, and we also have Twitter accounts for Universal Giving and for Pamela Hawley as well, and then my blog, Living and Giving, which is on WordPress.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks, for listening to the Entrepreneurs for Change podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more people with inspiring stories like this one by giving us a 5-star rating in iTunes. If this podcast inspires you to join the movement of change-making entrepreneurs, we'd love to give you a jumpstart with our free Business Changemakers Toolkit, which you can download at www.entrepreneursforachange.com/join. If you have a change maker in mind you'd love for us to interview, go to entrepreneursforachange.com/suggest and tell us who and why. Finally, feel free to stop by facebook.com/entrepreneursforachange to share your thoughts and say hello.